It is I, Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time for me to continue my discussion of the various races of the Pathfinder role-playing game system. And of course for you today, I have the Gripplis, believe it or not. So, let's talk about the Gripplis. The Gripplis are in fact frogmen. That's the easiest way to describe it. They are small in stature, only about 2 feet tall, about 30 pounds. They have a kind of greenish to brownish skin, molten in color. They're a tree frog race. Now this color does fade as they age, as a Grippli can live about 60 years. So when they're reaching that end of their lifespan, they'll kind of dull out some of the coloration in their skin. They are a swamp-dwelling folk, and the majority of this race are in fact primitive hunter-gatherers. They don't really leave their homes. They go after large insects or fish to sustain their families from their treetop homes deep within their swamps, oblivious to the outside world. So they're forest marsh creatures. Now they do barter with other races for things like gemstones and minerals that they need, or metals especially, so they can have some trade deals. It's those that become adventurers that tend to do this, which they aim for. Alchemists and rangers are actually the preferred classes of Gripplis that travel into the world to make the trades for their people. That's what they're planning on doing, bringing back materials for their people. Now, a newly born Grippli matures in about a year. So, why don't we talk about the racial abilities of a Grippli? They get bonuses to dexterity and wisdom. They're kind of lithe and kind of smart, but they lose that strength. It kind of matches the fact that they're small in size, the actual small size category. Now, they of course do have a base land speed that doesn't suffer from them being small in size. That's an important part of this entire thing. They have a 30 feet base land speed, but they also have a swim speed. Swim around. They have special camouflage that gives them bonuses to stealth when in marshes and forest terrain. And they are not hampered by difficult terrain within a marsh. So if you're having marsh-based adventures, hey, guess what kind of character would be great for it? Grippli! They of course have dark vision, they can see ahead of them. And an interesting thing for Grippli, they're proficient in nets. They get a bonus proficiency in nets. They're good at throwing a net out and capturing people with them. Now for alternate racial traits for a Grippli, they have a few. First off, some of them have trained to fight certain creatures and gain defensive abilities against them. They're well adapted for it. A few of them will find that they have almost like a membrane under their arms, that's sort of like a flying squirrel. They can't fly with it, but they can glide. This requires them to have some distance that they can move also horizontally, not just vertically, but they can effectively cut down a fall to nothing by gliding down through the air. Some of them are made just to jump, basically like a frog jumps. They don't have to get a run to get the bonus to an acrobatics check for jumping as if you're running. Basically, they can get a running start by just standing still. Hey, I got my run bonus to jump by just being here. A few of them are just princely, kind of like the frog prince, except they're not actual frog princes. But, you know, maybe Grippli swashbuckler. Anyway, they get bonuses to diplomacy and intimidation. And some of them actually have toxic skin. This toxic skin they can deliver with a touch, or they can smear it on their own weapons to use against their enemies. Now for favored class bonuses, there are some interesting ones. A Grippli alchemist gets more uses of its toxic skin per day if it has it. A barbarian Grippli gets bonuses to AC when using hide armor, or the natural armor bonus that barbarians get. A Grippli Oracle can learn spells of the Poison and Water School to its list that it just knows. Doesn't say specifically that it has to be Druid, but just a Poison Water spell that would normally not be Druid, add it to my list. It does have to be lower level than the ones I can cast, but still. Similarly, a Shaman can add Druid spells in that way, lower than the level they can currently cast, but hey, I need some Druid spells to my Shaman ones. So a lot of interesting options that they have out there. Let's talk about racial archetypes for Grippli, because there are a few. Small correction though before we start that, because I just realized I misspoke something a little earlier. They have the base land speed and a climb speed. Climb speed because they're tree frogs, not aquatic frogs, which is where the first archetype comes in. It's a Grippli alchemist that's particularly tuned to the ways of the swamp and the creatures within it. Their mutagen in general gives them the ability to swim and makes them amphibious, so they can become more actual frog-like. Other than that, it just gives you some ideas in this archetype of the discoveries and other options you might be able to take to tone yourself to this type of alchemist. But it's really the change in the mutagen which is the major thing here. There are a couple of discoveries that are specifically added by this archetype. Now another archetype is the Swamp Poisoner. This is specifically for Grippli rogues. An important part of this one is there is a prerequisite. You have to have taken the Toxic Skin Grippli racial trait, the alternate racial trait, because it's all about them using their toxic skin and their poisons to their greatest ability. A Swamp Poisoner gets bonuses to Escape Artist, effectively. They're kind of slippery because of the poison on their skin. They can also gain bonuses against people who are affected by their poison. And eventually they can smear poison on an area, making a sort of trap that anyone that enters that area is exposed to it. Now the last one I want to talk about is a Mantella. Pardon if I mispronounced that a little bit. I usually do that kind of thing. But anyway, it is a Grippli druid that specializes in, once again, using poison. Their abilities are very interesting. First off, when they wild shape into a creature, they automatically gain any poisons that creature has. They never can change into an elemental though, but at those early levels even, they have access to the creature's poison that they're changing into. Later on though, they get the ability to effectively absorb poisons. Now, wild animal companion gets immunity to poison. They can drink a poison down, basically absorb a poison, or however they're exposed to it, absorb it, a dose of it, rather than being effective it, store it in their body for up to a day. Then they can choose to secrete it as part of a natural attack, whether this is in their Mantella form, just their druid form, where my new touch attack, rather than the normal Grippli poison if I'm toxic skinned, or nothing if I don't have that, I have a new poison, or I transform into an animal and I replace the poison it has with the poison that I want to have now, with the poison I absorb, whether through skin or ingestion or inhale. I now am delivering it through my attack. They change its type to injury. That's a very interesting ability. It is immediate action to absorb it, so if you're getting multiple poisons in one round, you can't. But effectively, I can do this a certain number of times per day, and it's stored for up to a day, so I can absorb, drink, smear on my flesh a bunch of poisons, absorb them into me, and then be ready to transmit them back out to my enemies. Now there are a number of bonus feats that Grippli have access to. The first is Agile Tongue. Effectively, I have a tongue with a 10-foot reach that is prehensile. It's like having a prehensile tail that I can grab things away. I could sleight of hand, steal, disarm with said tongue like 10 feet away because I have a large frog tongue. I could even make melee touch attacks at a distance, which means if I'm a spellcasting Grippli, I could be like, bleh, and I don't have to be next to someone to deliver a touch spell. It's kind of weird and gross, but you could do it. Now, some of them, you can gain a feat that allows you to take some of the poison on your skin, the ones you can secrete, and create a resin weapon. Effectively, you improvise a weapon out. It counts as a simple, light weapon, but it can poison things, because it's made of poison. So it lasts for an hour, and once per minute, I can choose to have this weapon, when I'm hitting something with it, be poisoned. You can do that a number of times per day, maximum though, equal to your con modifier. So if a con modifier of 2, that means when I hit with this weapon, twice I can poison per day. I've basically created enough poison on them. The only thing is if anybody else tries to wield your resin weapon, they automatically are exposed to your poison. You're kind of immune to it. So congratulations! I could be like, poison dagger out of my own poison! Ha-ha! The last one, of course, I want to talk about is Noxious Touch. This one's interesting because it says that as an immediate action, if I'm using an unarmed strike, aka I'd be a Grippli monk, or I'm using a natural attack of some kind, I can immediately apply my poison as if I'd smeared it on my skin, ready. Basically, I can pump out some of my poison. Again, this requires the toxic skin, a lot of these feats too, but if you do take that option, you got some cool poisoning options, but that's it for today. So, I introduce you to the Grippli, tree frogs. Interesting tree frogs that you can make a lot of cool characters for. I've definitely seen a few, as I mentioned, Grippli swashbucklers if you're princely, entertaining and fun to play with. But Gripplis themselves have, as you can see from what we've talked about, very good options for them. And the idea that you're really out adventuring in the world to perhaps earn some money, metals, gems, minerals, that you want to send back to your people. Because your people are primitive tree frogs. Tribal then. You know, there could be other storylines as to why you ended up leaving or were separated from your tribe to make you who you are. But you, as the Grippli, are very interesting in this case because you are built up from a people who tend to be incredibly tribal and incredibly primitive, and making you an exception that people might not look at very well because they're probably going to assume you're primitive. And maybe you aren't. They certainly don't get any penalties to intelligence. Anyway, I hope you're having a great day. If you've played a Grippli character yourself, or had a player, if you're DM, in one of your games played Grippli character, let me know in the comments below. I love hearing about your characters and the adventures that they've been having. Remember, of course, to check out my links below, Twitter and Discord if you want to contact me, Twitch if you want to see any of my live streams, including the D&D ones, and of course, Patreon if you want to show some extra support for me. It helps this channel keep going. Anyway, have yourselves a wonderful day, and until the next time, I bid you farewell.